Hello everybody, Gisele Grenier here. In this video we're going to be working on rocks, and there's a link below the very first video which explains the whole process. And in the second video we're going to be working on stamping, but I'm going to be putting a little bit of a twist on it. So I'm going to quickly go over the supplies, but at the very end of the video I'm going to talk about everything I actually ended up using. So obviously rocks, we're going to get to that in a second. I've got my paints, decor media fluid acrylics, phthalo green blue, burnt sienna, titanium white, ultramarine blue, and I've got some decor patio paint outdoor, and this is great for rocks, cloud white. And these I'm going to talk about, but I'm not actually going to use. Decor Americana multi-purpose sealer, Americana Duraclear Ultra Matte Polyurethane Varnish. I'm going to talk about that in a second. And Decor Chalky Gesso, the white. Oh, forgot yellow oxide and media fluid acrylics. And I've got some stamps, chicken wire stamps, kitty cat stamps, and I have some tissue paper and vellum. Okay, so let me just go through this in a proper order. I will admit that I already did a video. It just didn't work out. I scrapped it. There was no way around it, but the good thing I scrapped it because it came up with this video. So what I did is I was working on stamping and using these tiny little border stamps that I cut up, and it just was awful. The rock was too uneven, and so I thought, well, I'll just get a flat rock. But you know what? You guys that are watching, you may not be able to find perfect rocks like this. I mean, I got the bundle from Home Depot, but these rocks here, I picked up off the beach. So you guys might not have access to that. So I thought, no, there's got to be a better way of doing this. So I'm going to be redoing this rock. So obviously you want to find yourself, oh my gosh, that's heavy, a rock. Okay. And with that, we need to prepare it. So if your rock is rough like this, you need to wash it in warm soapy water, rinse it really well, and let it air dry. Okay, so you can use a scrubby. And again, the first video explains the whole process of this. And then we need to prep the stone to receive paint. So there's a couple of ways to do this, 3 ways to do this. You can apply multi-purpose sealer, 2 to 3 coats, all sides, let each layer dry completely. Do that. You can also apply something like Decor Chalky Gesso, the white. So this is 1 layer. That's 2 layers. Okay, and then this one here has 5 layers, and I've tinted it with a little bit of yellow paint. You can do that. Or you can use something like this, a Decor patio paint, which is made for masonry as well. So this, you don't need to do any sealing. You just use this as is. Regardless of what product I use, I always seal my stones with a polyurethane varnish. Now the Americana Duraclear comes in ultra matte, soft touch, satin, gloss, high gloss, a bunch of different finishes, so you can choose the finish that you want. But this is suitable for outdoor use. So is the patio paint, but regardless, I always seal the stones. Okay, so let's pretend that, we're going to start with a stone. So I'm going to use gesso. I'm going to use gesso. This already has so much sealer in here. And let's do this one with a cosmetic sponge. Let's just apply it with a cosmetic sponge. And all you're going to do is on your stone, you're just going to apply the gesso. And you're going to apply enough layers so you get complete coverage. You don't want to see paint ridges like that. Okay, but you want complete coverage so you do not see any of the gray of the stone. You don't want to see any of the stone showing through. Because if the stone is showing through, then there's a chance that, if you're using this outside or if somebody's going to be handling it, there is a chance that a paint might peel off. Remember, we're working with stone, not canvas. Okay, so I'm going to do that. And then I can turn around and just use my heat gun or a hair dryer, and I'm holding the stone because if my hand can take the heat, then the stone can take the heat as well. Now, when you use that, remember the stone, depending on how long you keep it on, if I do this, the stone will get warm. You want to make sure before you apply the next layer of paint that the stone goes back to being cool. And we'll just apply that. Now, while I'm doing this, I'm just going to talk about the process. Again, the link for the first video, which explains everything, is in there. The series that I'm doing here, it's not too many videos. These I'm calling stress stones. And the idea is that when you hold the stone, when you're frustrated, you hold the stone, the coolness of the stone, your brain just draws right to the coolness of the stone. And if you start doing some deep breathing and focus on that, then it should help reduce your stress. And I'm doing that because it's chaos right now, but I'm doing that to help calm my heart rate down. And it works for me. It may not work for you, but it works for me. So either way, you don't have to call them stress stones. You can call them meditation stones, yoga stones. You can just call them happy stones. It doesn't matter. This one's going to be with, the stamp I'm using is of a cat, but you can use whatever you want. You don't have stamps? Make one. You don't have to go out and buy supplies just for this. Use bubble wrap. I think we all have bubble wrap. So use whatever. So I'm going to do this now, the rest off camera, until I have complete coverage. I don't really care if I, see some of the little flowers in there. Doesn't matter. The technique doesn't change. And do I need to do any more? So there's still a little bit of the stone showing here. So I'm going to make sure. Now I'm okay because I've got the sealer on here from when I first did the stone, but I got a piece of dry gesso there. Okay, so I think I'm pretty good. You know what? I'm going to leave it just the way it is. That's fine. All right, so that takes care of that. I'm going to leave the gesso there, so I'm going to need it. So the thing was, where I was having trouble with this was because of stamping, the rock was so irregular. Okay, so I'm thinking now how I'm going to hold the stone, and this is pretty good. This is a nice flat side, so, stamping. Well, and I already did another video how to do this already. When you just create stamping on tissue paper. The first thing I want to do is find a stamp that's going to lend well. Oh, that one's cute. Okay, I think I'm going to use this one. Let me show you how to actually. Yeah, I'm going to use this little one here. That's cute. All right, so I'm going to do that. And what we're going to do is basically just stamp on tissue, and you end up with something like that. And even this one would have been. Oh, that's a little tall. But I've got some feather stamps, So because when you're putting with matte medium, forgot the matte medium. When you're using matte medium, that the stuff becomes transparent. So what do we use for tissue? So let me just move this aside. Now I have to take this off, and yes, there's a glare, temporary glare. Let me put that right there. There we go. So tissue, the cheapest stuff you can find. Do not use expensive tissue. Cheap, cheap, cheap. Even cheap tracing paper at the dollar store works fine. So this stuff here I got, this at the dollar store, $1.25 for the whole package. This will take me for a year. And just to show you. Where is the end? I'm just going to rip off a piece. Okay, it looks like that. Even that's too opaque. But it'll do. Because that right now, let's just say, that's all I have. Okay. Put that over there. There's also deli paper that you can use. Okay. Now this is a bit of a pricier way to go. It's also a little bit harder to use, but that's another option. I'm not going to use the deli paper. I'm going to use the tracing paper, but you can see the difference, right? in the opacity. Okay, you want something like that. This will work, but you want something like that. If you can see your hand through it, you're fine. See, this one I can't really see I can, but not much, but you want to be able to see your hand. This is ideal. So I'm going to move this over here. And so I've got my chicken wire stamp, and I've got my Memento. This is mixed media, a mixed media pad. It's for porous surfaces. Now with this one here, I'm going to heat set it to make it permanent. Use whatever, just don't use the distress inks because they are not permanent. Pull this off. This is a well used. Oh, you know what I have here? I also have these little farm animal ones. Let me grab the bunny and grab the baby chick. Now what I don't know are these stamps the same height? No, it looks like these are higher than the chicken wire. So this is going to affect how everything's going to go down. So I'm going to take them off. And I'm just going to do these one at a time. So I'm just going to stamp that nice and light. I like that. I like that. Now I don't want to overlap a whole bunch of layers of collage because then it's going to become more and more opaque. So I'm going to try to stamp this in basically one shot. These little ones here though, I'm going to off stamp these just to see what they look like. Okay, bunny not so much, baby chicken not so much. So, okay, so I'm not going to use those. I'm looking for the crisp lines because remember, we want to be able to see. We want to be able to see through it. Let's see what this kitty cat looks like. Yeah, see? That's nice. So I'm going to apply that again. And I'm just going to put this over the chicken wire. I'm going to up stamp him here. Yeah, I'm not sure how I want to do that. I'm going to ponder that for a second. Okay, so I'm going to put all my stamps away, clean this up, and then we'll go on to preparing the paper for collaging. All right, so you know what I did? I took my StazOn pad and I got a much cleaner impression. So I'm going to be using this little guy here. All right, so all I'm going to do is, actually, I'm just going to tear. I'm going to tear as close as possible. Being aware of when you're tearing the grain of the paper. When you find that this is really easy to tear like this here, that's because the grain of the paper is going this way. So just be aware. If you have serrated scissors, ones that zigzag scissors, use that to cut because you'll get that rough edge. Okay, I just don't like hard edges. And then for the chicken wire, just going to pull a rough piece like that. Okay, that's it. Fold that up. And put that over here. So this is why I stamp a lot when I'm when I'm setting a day of doing the tissue stamping. That way I have everything already ready. Okay, let's get all this out of the way. So my idea is to get some, and I may or may not use it, I don't know. But my idea is for that and him like that. That's my idea, but the chicken wire shows through, so that's why I'm not sure if I'm going to end up using them. I kind of like the idea of the chicken wire though. So if that's the case, you could paint, you could paint this white, I don't want to get into doing that. You can also cut this around, draw a line, and tear your paper so it goes around the stamping, like that. So now there's no chicken wire behind the kitty cat. All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of ultramarine blue, not a lot, don't need a lot. And I've got enough gesso there, but I think it's drying out. A little bit of titanium white and a little bit of burnt sienna. And why I'm doing this on my paper is beyond me. I have no idea. It should have been on here. And a drop of phthalo green blue. And I'm looking here. Now, although I didn't use it, it ended up being on the paper. There's a little bit of yellow oxide in here. Looks a little bit off-white. So, although it is in the paint, I'm not going to do it now, but it was in the paint right in here from the original stone. So I'm going to grab just a brush. I've got this domey brush here, and I'm going to, yeah, that's dry. I'm going to take a little bit of ultramarine blue, and I'm just going to, just dry brush roughly. And this here, now I can go all the way around to the back. It doesn't matter. But if you don't want to paint the back, you can put a piece of masking tape as well. I like finishing the backs of my pieces. And I'm painting this quite roughly because it looks like there's little clouds coming through. And just fade that down. Now, normally I would say never, ever, ever draw your horizon line in the middle. But this is a rock where the rock kind of tells us how we're going to paint it. Even that was too much paint. Let me just grab a paper towel. I mean, this alone would make a beautiful background for a stone. Let me just quickly dry that. When you're using thinner consistency paints, it works out really, really well. So I want to go right down to the bottom. Now, with using the gesso as my white, it becomes much more opaque, so I have to put in a little bit more blue into that. And I'm just going to touch in some white, little clouds. I'm not going to worry too much about that because I've got the collage coming through. Okay, that's that. Now, let me just rinse that brush. So that's what we've got. I'm actually going to see if I can paint it up here. Let's see if that'll work. All right. Now what I want to do is I want to put something which looks like grass. So he's not just, the cat's just not floating. I'm going to take a little bit of phthalo green, a little bit of burnt sienna, and a little bit of white. And we get a sagey green. Pick a little bit of blue in there. And if you have something like sap green, that'll work well. Now that looks really dark. We're going to wipe the most of it off on the paper towel. And I'm just going to dry brush a little bit of that on here. Now I'm looking for not so much a perfect even line. And where I want to just dull that green back a bit, so I'm going to tap in a little bit of white on top. just something like that. And the beauty with doing it this way is that I can fade that out on the edges, so I don't have to go all the way back. I don't have to go all the way around. All I'm doing is just introducing a little bit of contrast, and by keeping the top edge soft, it doesn't really matter if it's a little bit uneven. See where it's a little bit dark there? Just put a little bit of white. But you want to do this softly. Pick up a little more green and just, you can even pick up the green, tap it on white paper so you can see what you're going to get, and then I can come in. Just layers. Okay. See, now it's all faded out and it works out quite nice. Okay, I think we're pretty well good. You can even collage this, this part down if you want. It's up to you. Like that. Okay. Rinse out that brush. But sap green works out to be a nice grassy color. You could take ultramarine blue and Hansa yellow medium. You could try to get something dull, but the burnt sienna really dulls it down. And hopefully you can see. I think, you know what? I'm going to turn down the lights a little bit. And let's see if I can move that. I don't know if that's any better. No, I can't see. I don't know if that's any better for you guys, if you can see. That's one thing with filming. It's always an issue when it comes to anything light. Now, Decor used to make the decoupage medium for outdoor use. Guess what? They stopped making it. So I've got the matte medium. Now what I was thinking, I don't know how this would work, but I can't. You know what? No. Yeah, no. What if you used the Ultra Matte Varnish as your collage medium? What would happen with that? I'm going to do another project to test this out. I do not want to make this recommendation unless I've tested it out myself. So, yeah, no. But you want something, because when I create rocks like this, I always assume hands are going to be sweaty or it's going to be outside in the rain. Always, always, always. Yeah, because they stopped making it, and darn. So matte medium, because matte medium, although it is really strong, it's not meant for outdoor use. So that's where the varnish, polyurethane varnish, comes in. I'm not going to use triple thick. I'm not going to use any of the Decor Media varnishes. They're not for outdoor use. You want to use something for outdoor use. All right. So I trimmed him down even more. Look at that. See how the grass shows through? And it looks almost seamless. Let's get you over here. Now you may say, well, my rock won't be used for outdoor use. Okay, imagine if you're making this rock for a kid, food on their hands, ice cream, yucky hands on the stone. Okay, always assume the worst case scenario. And this one here, I could put that one right there. See how it just makes the chicken wire look like it's behind? But mind you, then there's nothing here. So you kind of have to play. Do you want something in the background like this, or just the cat by? You know what? I'm going to leave the cat by himself. I'm going to leave it just like that. Yep. That paper just blends right in perfectly. Now, if this was a black stone or really dark color, then the paper would not, you wouldn't be so seamless. Now, because this is a matte medium, I'm going to bring this right to the outside edge so the finish will be consistent. And that's this one here, the matte medium. There's a heavy gel medium, which I'm not going to use, so put you aside. All right. I love how that turned out. Now it's a matter of just waiting for that to dry, and then I'm going to, you know what? Do I want to stamp a little word? Yeah, I'm going to stamp a little word. So I'm going to wait for this to dry. We'll come in with some stamping, and then we're going to varnish. All right, so I'm going to grab the scrap piece of paper, and I'm going to go with my StazOn. And let's just get a little bit closer. And all I'm going to do is stamp high. That's all, just high. Because there's not a lot of room. There's not a lot of room on there. Oh, that's terrible. That is terrible. Let's try that again. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. I got tape on there. All right. And because I know it's how seamless it is, could I have stamped directly onto the rock? Yep, but the technique in this video was stamping on tissue. Okay, let's put that over there. Oh my goodness, that's gonna... The other thing I could have stamped is meow, but that's, you know, that's expected. Okay, where do I want to put this? Let's put it right here. That's it. Done. Now I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to show you how to varnish so you have a seamless varnish finish. Okay, fresh brush. Now, I'm going to use my varnish brush, but it's too big for this. So, I was showing the Duraclear Ultra Matte Polyurethane Varnish. And for this one here, I'm going to be using the satin varnish. I've always followed the directions on the bottle. And with this one here, dry brush, clean. And so it's touch, push, lift, touch, push, lift, touch, push, lift. And when you're lifting the brush, what you're doing is you're not getting any ridges, and ridges is not what we want. Okay, when I talk about ridges, I'm talking like that. That's a ridge of paint. You don't want that. Multiple thin layers. Now, if you really want to get crafty and you have an unlimited budget, do a pour of resin. That'll work out nice as well. It'll look like glass. But touch, push, lift gets rid of all those things. And I would say when you're varnishing like this, because it's such a thin layer, if you're brushing over about 5 times before the varnish gets tacky. Because once it starts to get tacky, you have to leave it. You have to let it dry. And I'm turning and watching. And the number of layers, for this particular rock, I would probably put about 5 layers of varnish on this. I know exactly who I'm going to give this to. There's the kids in the in our townhouse complex here. They're forever raiding my garden, looking for the garden on the outside of our fence, looking for the stones that I paint. I put them there for them. Last year they got them all. The favorite was the ladybug. I did a ladybug stone. All right, so that's that. So I'm going to let that dry now. Then I'll come in and put 5 more layers on, and then go from there. Now the brush I am going to put in water, but I have another brush of the same size that I'm going to use. I always use a dry brush. Okay, so let's talk now about some options here. Before varnishing, could have did some splatters, could have taken the end of a small brush with gold paint. I could have just dotted some gold dots on there. You know, there's so many different options. The whole thing is that to enjoy the process, don't look at the finished piece as the goal. Okay, just enjoy the process. I learned how to take a fourbard stone, which I was trying to work with, and turn it into something completely gorgeous. I love this. Absolutely love this. So with the varnish being on there, you can hold the stone even if your hands are, it's not a nice way to say it, but if your hands are sweaty, damp, you've got natural oils, the varnish is going to protect it. That's why I like using, but for this here, about 5 coats of varnish. Remember, the matte medium is not for outdoor use, so that's why I want to make sure it's completely sealed. Layer, dry, layer, dry, layer, dry, all sides. So the varnishing part, to be honest with you, will take longer than the actual completion of the whole project. So in saying that, if you like the process of painting on rock, creating rocks, even collage rock like this, do them in batches. Take a, set them up in a line, do 10 at a time. You work on one, then the next, the next. By the time you get to number 10, number 1 should be dry. And then go, and then go. Okay, do them like a little assembly line. All right, so I'm going to work the rest of the layers of this, and then we come back, I'll clean everything up, go over the supplies I actually used, and see the finished piece. Okay, for the supplies I actually ended up using, because I was working on an existing stone, you didn't see it, but what was on there was Decor Americana multi-purpose sealer, and then the Decor Chalky Gesso, the white. Okay, and I use these little mini stamps. I picked these up at Michael's. They were on clearance. I think I paid 99 cents for them. And the Stays On Jet Black, that's the one that gave the clear impression. The Memento didn't give a very clear impression. So, but the Stays On was really well done. This kitty cat stamp, picked this up on Amazon. And this chicken wire Kaiser Craft stamp, picked this up at Len's Mill. I think I paid $1 for it, $2 for it, many years ago. And El Cheapo tissue paper from the dollar store. And didn't need that. Okay, so I get a nice clear impression. And then the paints, Decor Media Matte Medium for the collage. Decor Media Fluid Acrylics, Phthalo Green Blue, Burnt Sienna, Titanium White, Ultramarine Blue. Now, Yellow Oxide I didn't actually use, but it was in the original coloring, and a little bit of the yellow does show through right about here. So yes, I sort of used it, and if I were to starting the stone from scratch again, I would take the white with a touch of yellow just to warm up the stone a little bit. Okay, and then for varnishing, the Americana Duraclear Satin Varnish. Now, with the varnishes, with the finish, I want to show you. Okay, so that's the satin. This is the ultra matte. Okay, see the difference? So that's this one here, the ultra matte. It's up to you what you want to do. I look at this now and I'm thinking the matte I think would have been nice. I love a matte finish. I love a matte finish, but that's up to you. This is easier for filming to show. But anyway, so that's that. So that's it, you guys. Let me get a nice piece of paper to put this rock on, and then we'll close this up. So I hope that you enjoyed this process to see how easy it is to make a beautiful little stamped stone. Love this technique. Now, one of the videos that's coming up, and I was making notes as I was filming, they're going to do a rock with the gel plate, a stencil, and a rock with embossing. And then I've got my tissue stamp collage. I'm going to do another one of those, but the one with the gel plate is going to be very, very interesting. All right, so if you end up creating something like this, please, please, please put the link to where I can see the picture in the comments below. I love seeing the artwork that you guys end up creating. If you have any questions, you can either comment below or you can go to artplace.ca, click contact me, and you can send a private message that way. All right, so until I see you in the next lesson, stay inspired.